and welcome back to my channel, and welcome back to me steaming up my glasses 5 seconds after putting them on. Good work, Hannah. It's warm today. I was like, I need to film because everyone's out of the house, but it is warm. And I hate filming when it's warm. I hate the way it makes my face feel, but we're here. And I've been putting this actual video off for like 100 years. So it's time. It's time for me to do another TBR Vet check-in. If you're new to my channel, you might not know this about me. I love a challenge. I will challenge myself, I will challenge other people, and I will fight to the death to win. And sometimes I take things a little bit too far in that attempt to fight with books to the death. One such challenge that has proved helpful in some ways, in that it has curbed my book buying, unhelpful in other ways because I am still book buying and then I'm buying books that I'm not allowed to read straight away, is this TBR Vet challenge. Now, when I first moved into this house, I realised I had a lot of books that I'd had for a really long time, and that is just 3 years plus for YouTube now. But in general, I'd had these books for like 7 years and never read them. I buy a lot of books from charity shops, I get a lot of books from people's unhauls, and then they just sit there. And I read the thing that I bought recently. You can literally see this. How warm am I? Why is this necessary? Why is this necessary? How warm is my face that that's happening as I speak to you? Anyway, so I get a lot of books and then I avoid reading them in favour of books that I've just bought. So the TBR Vet challenge was essentially to stop me doing that. I am not allowed to read books that I've just bought. Except I do. That's exactly what I do. I'm supposed to read a TBR Vet before I put a book I've just bought onto my TBR. So, as I said, a TBR Vet is any book I've had older than 3 years, any book that has come to me from someone else's unhaul, so like a second-hand book, any book from a library or charity shop, and there was one other thing that made it a TBR Vet. Maybe there wasn't. Maybe it was just the 3. It felt like there should have been a 4th thing. Had for ages. Unhaul, charity shop purchase, or ARCs, I guess. We'll just chuck ARCs in on the end there, because I lost my train of thought. Anyway, I am allowed to swap a new book on for every one of those I read. However, because I'm terrible, it's happening again, just accept it. Because I'm terrible for actually reading those books, I can also unhaul books to swap on. But if I just unhaul a book and I've not read it, I have to unhaul 10. If I DNF, again, I have to DNF 10, so that I'm not just swapping one for one for books that I want to read. But if I read and keep a book, I have to read 5 of them, so they're not an exact read and swap. But if I read a TBR Vet and unhaul it, decide it's not for me, 3 stars or less, or just not vibing with it, and get rid of it, then I get to swap one on for one. There are many books in this list. I have unhauled many books, and it will only be when I look at my spreadsheet later and total up to then look up the graphics for this that I will really understand just how many books I've bought and unhauled, etc. But in the meantime, I just thought I'd let you know what I've unhauled and what I've hauled as a swap. So that's what this video is. Buckle up. We're going to be here a while. Okay, so to get this stunning Waterstones edition of Lady Macbeth ad onto my shelf, we love a Macbeth retelling and we love a historical retelling. I had to unhaul 10 books that I was never going to read, and on that list included A Dowry of Blood, Star-Crossed, Dreamless and Goddess. Trust me, I tried. The writing is not good. It's very 2012 and I couldn't get back into it, but I love this series. If you're a big fan of Twilight and you don't mind that writing style, give this series a go. It has had new covers. They're not great, but it's a good time. I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it for me, and I needed to unhaul some stuff, so I unhauled them. Mostly Harmless, gone. Gone. Wasn't interested in finishing that series. I Want to Die But I Want to Eat Tteokbokki, which was unhauled to me from Olivia, but then Olivia didn't love it. Olivia got an ARC. They gave me a copy. I unhauled it because if they didn't vibe with it, I'm probably not going to vibe with it either. I unhauled 12 Caesars, not because I have no interest in reading it, but just because it is a really chunky hardback. I know it will find a new home with someone who really appreciates it, and I'm much more likely to do it as a audiobook anyway. I just prefer my non-fictions as an audiobook. I also unhauled Camp. I gave the first chapter a try and just didn't vibe with the writing style. That was literally it, like nothing, no other reason. I was given an ARC of a book called Jeopardy, which was an indie published procedural about the police force, and again, that's just not really really my thing, so I unhauled that one. And I was also given a self-help book called Have Your Life Your Way, which again, I tried, but it just wasn't my vibe. So those 10 books have gone. This one is on my shelf. Now to just prioritize it, because I haven't. I was going to read it for All the World's a Page and then just didn't get around to it. My reading this year has been weird, but my book buying has sustained. You know, it's really frustrating when you have all the hardbacks of one author except for one. Why did this not come out in hardback, Quackus? Explain that to me. Oh, it's because it's by Solaris. That would make sense, but it makes me sad nonetheless. 10 books were unhauled to get this onto my shelf. I unhauled Wise Children by Angela Carter. I unhauled The Sanatorium because I just wasn't interested in it. The Winter Duke because the writing style was quite dense and I wasn't vibing with it. Wonder Woman. Turtles All the Way Down. I just never picked it up. I never prioritized it. That was another one that I got unhauled from Olivia, I believe. What's Mine Is Yours. When Women Were Dragons, which I got from 𝐂𝐴T𝐚𝐥𝐸𝐴 and then just never picked up, so got rid. Wings of Fury, which was becoming like a massive series, and I didn't have the inclination for it anymore. And Winterwood, which I tried for my wintry vlog and just didn't vibe with. So they are gone. Signal to Noise by Silva Moreno Garcia is in. And if someone wants to make me a hardback version of this, please, because then it will go with the rest of mine, which are very pretty. So, this was a buddy read that I did with my mum and my sister-in-law, but to get it onto my TBR in the first place, I did unhaul 10 books just in time to take it on holiday. So I unhauled The Black Hawks because I heard mid things about it. Book Lovers Anthology, which was gifted to me at Christmas as part of a Secret Santa, but was definitely, like, it was from 2019. It was clearly just a book they had on their shelf that they thought I would be interested in, but rather than just lend it to me, they gave it to me as a Christmas present. Thanks, bud. Burning Girls, just because I wasn't interested in it. Confessions of a Jane Austen Addict. The Friend Scheme. The Monogram Murders. Dorian Gray, which I have a different copy of. I still have a Dorian Gray copy. This was just an uglier copy. Rabbit Hutch, which was technically a new purchase, but I'm swapping it out anyway because I've heard that it's about a teacher-student relationship and has sexual assault in it. And those two things are triggers for me, let alone together. Can't deal with that. Reluctant Vampire Queen, I unhauled, which is another one that I got from 𝐂𝐴T𝐚𝐥𝐸𝐴, but just wasn't vibing with and was an ARC, so I wasn't too worried about it. And then Reprieve, which again I got in for a book club this year, but I wanted to fill up so that I could get this one on my shelf quickly. I then didn't massively love this. This got like a 3 stars. It had a really interesting concept. Some of the writing was interesting. The main character was weird and the choices she made were just wrong, but I can see why people would like this, and I think thriller girlies in general would really like this, but it didn't have enough of any one thing for me. It didn't really commit one way or the other, but I'm really intrigued to see what other people think about it, so I have been recommending it to other people. But it meant that because I'm not keeping it on my shelves, I'm swapping it onto someone else's. I was able to swap it on for a new book, so I am swapping it out for Frontier, which is a Hodderscape and Waterstones edition sci-fi, which is technically on my TBR for this month, but I haven't picked up yet. I'll get there. Another big unhaul list to get a author fave onto my shelf. I unhauled 4 Robin Hood books, pretty much the entire Assassin's storyline, but well, pretty much the entire trilogy, the first trilogy of the Assassin story, and then the prequel. Sharp's Enemy. I love the TV series, never got on with the books, I don't know why I had it. 6 Queens by Alison Weir. Slow Motion, which was another arc that I never asked for. Stay Sexy and Don't Get Murdered, I unhauled because I was gifted that by someone who doesn't speak to me anymore, so that had to go. The Stranger Things book that I bought was mid, so got a shot of that. And Tales from the Hinterland, because again, I keep trying. I tried the sequel of the Hazelwood and just didn't vibe with that one either. So I'm going to enjoy Hazelwood and just leave it at that, but it means that I finally get to put the Chloe Gong book on. There are other Chloe Gong books in this list, but not Immortal Longings, because I haven't unhauled or removed enough to get that one on the list. Okay, whilst we're here, I might as well say that I do have this on my TBR because I read Autobiography, which was a unhauled from Olivia. No, it wasn't unhauled from Olivia. Might have been unhauled from Danny. It was unhauled from somebody. Had it as a second-hand book. Swapped it out for The Last Bear by Hannah Gold. Gave that 3 stars. So then swapped it out for the last Violent Call by Chloe Gong. So just one more to go, and then Immortal Longings can go on my shelf. In the meantime, I will just have to, like, use Lizzie's copy, because Lizzie has a copy already. We have another one that got swapped out for another one. So I unhauled 10 books to get onto my shelf Pride and Prejudice and Other Flavours, because that was a new purchase. So I unhauled Rivers of London, Locks, Metamorphosis, Modern Nature, Moxie, Surrounded by Bad Bosses, Of Light and Darkness, Scapegraces, Queen of the Conquered, and King of the Rising. Now, Queen of the Conquered and King of the Rising were not unhauled because I didn't like them or anything like that. They were unhauled because I had TBR'd them 3 times. And if I TBR a book 3 times and don't prioritise it, I'm probably never going to prioritise it, so it has to go. If I then get it as an audiobook or listen to it or come across another copy, I might buy it again, but it's not getting on my TBR anytime soon. And I'd had it so long that the pages were brown. Gross. Like I said, I swapped in Pride and Prejudice and Other Flavours, which I then DNF'd and unhauled, and I have swapped in for The Shadow Cabinet. Have I read the first one? No. Am I crossing my fingers that I like it? Yes, I am. I love mentioning that Jess Kidd was one of my lecturers because people love their writing. Have I read anything recently? No. Have I had this one for a while? Yes. Is it really pretty? Also, yes. Couldn't resist. So I had to unhaul another 10 books so that I could get it onto my shelves. So I unhauled Feminists Don't Wear Pink, Find You in the Dark, Fingersmith, Four Dead Queens, Girl Serpent Thorn, Imaginary Friends, Inkheart and Inkspell, and Leviathan Wakes. Most of those were ones that I just wasn't vibing with, and a couple of them were rereads anyway. So Feminists Don't Wear Pink and Fingersmith were rereads. So that's the thing! Oh! That was the 4th thing. Rereads also count as TBR Vets. God damn it. I really should write this down. One of the first books that went on to my TBR from my TBR Vet challenge of this year, still haven't read it. We did a big unhaul for this one. Kiss After Dying, which was an arc. A Study in Charlotte, which I wasn't vibing with. Ember in the Ashes 1, 2 and 3. I'm so sorry, Becca. Becca sent those to me because I asked for them in an unhaul of theirs, only to be told by Lizzie after they'd arrived that Lizzie had 1, 2 and 3, and therefore I didn't need them. I could have just borrowed theirs. So, not only did I feel stupid, I wasted your time and money. I'm so sorry. They're gone now. This is on my shelf instead. Breakfast at Tiffany's, which my mum bought me because we were going to the theatre for it. The play was mid, so I got rid of the book as well. Bring Up the Bodies, because I just haven't picked it up. Like, I just never get around to reading it. Hilary Mantel is not something that I pick up on a regular basis, apparently. Dark Vision, which was a collection of L.J. Smith stories, Dearly, which is the Margaret Atwood poetry, and Dread Nation, which is a zombie book by an author that I heard since is problematic, but it was also the only zombie book I had on my shelves. So maybe should have kept it. Didn't. Have this now. We've got a murder mystery set on a boat. How fun. Oh, now I'm gonna need to do a boat vlog because we've got the night ship, we've got that one, and somewhere I've got that like mystery YA book about the heist on the Titanic. That's gonna have to happen now. That's a thing that has to happen now. I don't know when it'll happen. 2026 probably. Touch of Darkness I tried and hated. Shadow People we DNF'd for the book club. Bluebird I DNF'd for the book club. Love and Other Disasters I DNF'd for the book club. Malice I just didn't vibe with. Babylon Steel I was never going to reread. Dark Matter I tried. It was an anthology of Afrofuturist sci-fi, but it was just too much on the sci-fi side for me. I just couldn't get on with it. A Dark and Hollow, Star, and The Matrix. Finally. Did I read Iron Gold regardless? Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Do I have Lightbringer yet? The arc that I was promised never arrived. I'm devastated. So I'm just gonna do the audiobook and then get a paperback so they all match. That's what I'm gonna do. My life is really hard, guys. My life is really hard. So I read and kept Bad Feminist. I read and kept Inferior. Those are both feminist non-fictions, and I really enjoy both of them, so I'm keeping them to be a good feminist. I read The Other Bennett Sister, which also makes me a good feminist, and loved it. And I also read The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, which, considering I said I would never read, gave 5 stars, kept. and now I feel like I need a pretty copy of it. So anyway, because that was only 4, I also unhauled Much Ado About You, which was a romance based on Much Ado About Nothing, but the writing style was really jarring. It was really jarring, and the main character was incredibly fatphobic towards herself. Wasn't vibing with it. Swapped it on for an LGBT BIPOC middle grade, because if you're going to be a good feminist, you've got to be an inclusive good feminist. And also sprayed rainbow sprayed edges. Why was that so hard to say? And the other ones that were from books that I read and kept were Flowers in the Attic, Nicola and the Viscount, and Inspector Calls, Chocolat, Lily Be on the Brink of Cool. And I tell you, did I expect to keep any of those? No. But I loved all of them. They were all a good time. And I would reread all of them. But it does mean that I get to swap on the Hacienda, which I've seen compared to Mexican Gothic. And immediately that had me intrigued. Latinx, Gothic romance, sign me up. I've been told it's steamy as well, so fingers crossed. 4 books that I got to swap because I read and then unhauled books actually come from an Unhauled series. The first is I unhauled The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. This was going to be for our Don't Forget Your Towel-a-thon, and the first book was great. I hated all the other books, which is why that's what the next lot of books are. But because it came as a series and I unhauled all of them, I only failed to read one of them. It counts as a read and swap out. So for The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, I get to put The Things We Do to Our Friends onto my TBR. I think this is like a dark academia thriller. I don't know much more about it, and I've not heard much since I bought it, which worries me a little bit, but the cover still is all the vibes for me. The Restaurant at the End of the Universe was swapped out for Love on the Brain, which I've already read, and in the last video I did swap some other newer books on, but this isn't a TBR vet and I'm keeping it, so I'm not swapping anything on for this one, having read it. Life, the Universe and Everything I swapped out for Love to Loathe You, which is the short story collection of Ali Hazelwood short stories, obviously. The anthology of Ali Hazelwood short stories is what I meant to say, but more coherently. Didn't. So that was book 3. And then So Long and Thanks for All the Fish became The Stolen Heir, which I have also read. But again, because I am keeping, although it was mid for me, it was like 3.5 to 4 stars. I didn't love it massively. I'm keeping it because I have all of the other Cruel Prince books in hardback, and I don't want to risk losing this. If I like the rest of the series, I don't want to lose my hardback. So this one might be unhauled, but it hasn't yet. So I'm keeping it. Obviously, there is also Mostly Harmless, which you've already seen in this video. I DNF'd it. I didn't bother with it. So it just gone. So I read By Hidden Culture, which is a non-fiction about bisexuality in pop culture and how it's kind of ignored, like generally ignored. Read that, unhauled it, and then swapped it for That Way Madness Lies, which is a collection of short stories about Shakespeare retellings. Unhauled that, having read and unhauled, so it was a read one, yeah, and now I have Belladonna on my shelf. I bought this ages ago. I bought this when this came out. When it came out in the massive box sets, it's just been sat unread because it wasn't on my TBR yet, because I was swapping other things on beforehand. But it's on my TBR now. I'm sure Kelly will be thrilled. I've heard nothing but good things, so I'm excited. I'm excited for this one. I don't know if this is another Raylo fic, but yes, I don't know if it's another Raylo fic. I always assume it is if it comes from Kelly, but it doesn't have to be. It could just be a good romance. Who knows? So, as you know from my big old vlog, I read Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, and it was shit. So I swapped Undead Unluck onto my TBR, which was one of the manga that I bought earlier this year. I'm not keeping it. I enjoyed it, but I'm not keeping it. It is not a series that I think I will commit to. So I unhauled that as well. And I have swapped on Violet Made of Thorns, another one that I got when it was in the Illumicrate Fairy Loot box or whatever. I got my own copy, never put it on my TBR, never picked it up, haven't heard anything about it since. This is why I'm supposed to do these videos more regularly. I haven't, and I should. Then we have a whole trio of Lore Olympus. There were quite a few books that I read that were kind of mid. I am just putting this straight on my TBR because this was given to me, unhauled to me, from Olivia from Olivia's Catastrophe, because I think she got multiple copies. So can go straight onto my TBR after these two go on. So I love that for me. It's a freebie. We love a freebie. I think there were a few freebies that went on last time as well. Oh no, I did a whole video. I don't even know what my content is anymore. But I read Longbourn and hated it, so I'm swapping on Lore Olympus Volume 2. As you can see, Lore Olympus Volume 1. I had to get there eventually. Lore Olympus Volume 1 is already on my TBR. I have read most of the webcomics. I just haven't read them in book form, so technically they're still on my TBR. And then also I read Witchlings, which I'd had for a while, and I've swapped on Volume 3, having finished Unhauled and swapped on. If you haven't read that series, it's beautiful. It's sad, it's poignant, and it's a good time. It's one of those graphic novels where, like Saga, again, just pointing at things on my shelves because they're behind me, it's a graphic novel series that I'm really glad is getting the hype it deserves, but there are so many other, offense, that don't get the hype they deserve, but we're not here to talk about graphic novels right now. We should, but we're not. So I have technically read Death Note Volume 1 already, but I have not read this edition. Just realised there's still a sticker mark on that. Not best pleased. But I went to Newcastle and I spent way too much money at Forbidden Planet. So I read Reasons to Stay Alive and Unhauled it, so I got to put Volume 1 on my shelf. I am going to reread it because I haven't read this copy of it. It is technically on my TBR, but like it didn't have to be. I'm just trying to play by my own rules for once. I read and unhauled The Case of the Missing Marquess for Volume 2. Read and unhauled Death of a She-Devil by Faye Weldon for Volume 3. But fear not, because Faye Weldon, may she rest in peace, was one of my literary heroes and an absolute babe of a lecturer. It's unhauled to my mum because it was signed to her anyway. I was just keeping hold of it until I read it and then could unhaul it. So it's gone to a lovely, loving home. I read and unhauled Toil and Trouble, which was a collection of witchy stories for Volume 4. Read and unhauled The Woman in Black for Volume 5, and read and unhauled The Midnight Library for Volume 6. I read and unhauled Proud, which was an anthology of LGBT stories, and swapped in Highly Suspicious and Unfairly Cute by Talia Hibbert. I much prefer her adult writing, so I unhauled that after reading, and swapped in Bite Risk, which is a YA werewolf story. I read Mystery in White, which is a Christmas mystery, and swapped in Self-Made Boys, which I just didn't enjoy because it was a Gatsby retelling. So after umming and ahhing about it, I've also unhauled that one so that I can put The Hedge Witch, which is a middle grade witchy story, on my TBR instead. I just think of the two of them, I'd rather read this than ever reread that. So it's a bit of a no-brainer. And then I read, hated and unhauled 𝙃𝐴𝐸𝐴 and swapped it on for Legends and Lattes, of which this copy has really nice sprayed edges. So yay me. I really enjoyed this. I'm keeping it. I'm not swapping it out for anything else. Read, hated and unhauled Death Comes to Pemberley and swapped it on for Hellbent. This is again the Waterstones edition. Stunning. I actually had my 9th house sprayed to go with it. They don't match one for one, but I really like they're both sprayed edges now. But I loved 9th house. I will be rereading that very soon so I can read this, and I have a whole video planned. So long as I can get my rear into gear and actually film something, it's going to be a good time. Read and unhauled Blackout, which was an anthology of YA romance stories by BIPOC authors, and swapped it on for Yellowface. Again, this is meant to be on this month's TBR, so really should prioritise it. Should get to it soon. Haven't yet. I read and unhauled Anne of Green Gables for Volume 1 of Sailor Moon, which I've also read. I'm keeping this for now. I didn't massively love it. I think I prefer the anime series to the manga, just because in general I prefer anime to manga. And if I need space on my shelves, this series might be the first to go, but I haven't read the other two yet, so I don't want to guarantee I'm going to swap it out yet. So maybe, but haven't yet. For Volume 2, I read and unhauled Artemis Fowl. And for Volume 3, I read and unhauled Ashes of the Sun. It's not a series that I'm massively enamoured with, but Lizzie has 3 of the 4 books now in very nice hardbacks, so I feel like if I do read them, I will read their copies, and it meant that I could swap this onto my shelf instead. So once I've read those 2, I will make a decision as to A, whether I'm going to continue on with that series, and B, whether I actually need to keep them on my shelves or not. TBR vet that I'm currently reading is The Lux. I'm really enjoying this. This is Gossip Girl set in like the 18th century. It is very much like the TV series Reign in that the historical stuff is not accurate, but for some reason I'm finding it far easier to forgive in book form than I did in a TV series. So there's on me and my prejudice. So yeah. Lots of books on, lots of books off. I'm going to try and film another update in December rather than leave it 9 months before I do another update, because this was a lot. I'm tired. And this has not shifted the entire time. So you know how warm I've been? you know. Let me know in the comments down below, what was the most recent purchase you made, and did it actually make it onto your TBR, or are you punishing yourself in some way that was completely arbitrary and unnecessary, like this guy? If you just want to let me know you were here, feel free to leave either a sweating emoji or a little bit of sunshine to reflect the fact that this is still happening. Make sure to treat yourself from something with Waypoints because it supports me and my content, and more important than all of those things, have a nice day.